Hello, people. Welcome to the community of the Growth Mindset podcast. Guys, if you are a first time listener, don't forget to subscribe on whichever platform you're listening from so that you don't miss on more interesting episodes coming up in following weeks. And for our daily listeners, here we are again with a new episode where we will interview another interesting personality from a unique industry and understand how they were able to accomplish this great level of success. Remember, this is a podcast where we learn easy, practical methods and tips that we can implement in our daily lives from the very best and the most successful people known today. Because as we all know, success leaves clues. And we, the people having the growth mindset, will use these clues to create a better, more fulfilling, and a successful life. So, let the growth begin. Maria, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us on the Growth Mindset podcast. It is a
Thank
pleasure to have you here.
It is my pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Would you like to tell people a little bit about, what exactly you do and what do you stand for?
Oh, good question. The thing I actually want to tell you is that I'm Norwegian. That's like the proudest part of me. But I've been living in Sweden mostly for the past 10 to 15 years or so. And also been spending a lot of time in the US and in actually Thailand, and kind of like around Asia. And what I do is that I run Changing Attitudes, and it's like a lifestyle brand, you could call it. And what we do is basically we educate on sex buying and porn. And so I've been like doing that work. So it's like educational and prevention work, meeting with young people, sharing facts and knowledge to get, I guess, the word out there, and to also, I would say, empower young people to be able to make informed decisions.
Yeah.
Is porn gonna give me what I'm looking for or not, And so for us, it's really about, the facts and the knowledge. And then that kind of led on to the TEDx talk, Let's Talk Porn, which is all about porn. So yeah, and that was an amazing journey, I have to say, to be able to do that. And because it's not really, you're not just put on a stage and then let's just see how it goes. It's so much work that is like put into this, and you have a coach, and your script is just like, it's so thorough. Every word is like really like chosen for for what you want to say. And so yeah, that was an amazing journey. And since then, I guess it's just been like continuing. And I really see, like, for me, in terms of the reach, I see that it's, I guess, far more global now. Yeah, because I mean, TEDx or TED Talks are in English, so I mean, you kind of reach,
almost
a whole lot of
everywhere.
people. Yes.
Yeah.
So that is amazing. Yeah.
Perfect. And I've personally listened to your TED Talk, and I must say that is amazing. It gave me a lot of new perspective as well. I want to understand, when did you feel the need, or what got your attention saying, okay, this is something that I want to do. This is something I want to spread more awareness about. When did this happen?
It actually started when I guess I was like 17 or 18, and I had just moved from Norway to Sweden. And I was about to do my final year project in school. And so I kind of chose to focus on sex buying, prostitution, sex trafficking. And when I then, realized, because I did like this whole fundraising project, and it was like too huge really for my 17-year-old but self. Yeah. But yeah, so then I was doing this whole fundraising thing, and basically like just, bringing awareness to my school really. And that kind of led to me realizing that, wow, so many of my classmates don't even know about this. And that's when I kind of forced, I want to be honest, I kind of forced two friends to join me, but I ended up marrying one of them. So it's fine.
That's nice.
That is
The end
nice.
result was nice.
Yes. That was an unexpected result. But yeah, and actually he still works with me in changing attitudes, because we were, like I said, we were three people starting off, just kind of wanting to share about this to our friends in our community, and then that kind of led on to I guess a growth. And yeah, so now changing attitudes is, I would say, it's like run by youth, like we're a bunch of young
Mm,
people um using, especially I would say, like social media and digital platforms to really like get the
mm,
facts straight. And we have a lot of merch, and we have a lot of stuff just to kind of like make it a lifestyle brand,
got it.
to make and to like normalize conversations about porn and sex
Yeah,
buying. Yeah.
interesting. Now, for people who might not know about, tell us something about sex buying first, and then we'll also talk about porn. But what is happening in this ugly world, or this world of sex buying? What is happening?
Wow. I mean, there is no country on earth that does not have a problem with sex buying or
Hmm.
prostitution. And I would say that sex trafficking is always going to be expressed as prostitution.
Hmm.
And then prostitution is driven by demand, meaning it's driven by people who are willing to pay for sex.
Hmm.
So the sex buyer really is the person with the power here.
Hmm.
Um, and then it's also a matter of, I mean, the whole idea of prostitution is basically that you have one person who does not want to have sex, the person in prostitution,
Hmm.
and then you have a person who wants to have sex, meaning the person who is paying for sex. And the whole reason that the sex can happen is because of the money or the compensation.
Yes.
So it is a no from the start, but it's
Hmm.
turned into a yes because of the money or because of
Right.
the compensation. So it's a bought or it's a bribed yes. So I mean, prostitution really is in many cases not consensual. It's not, it's non-consensual sex, which is obviously a problem. And yeah, so it's, and the people in prostitution are obviously, most of them do not want to be there. Most of them are suffering tremendously, and most of them have background stories that would make you lose sleep.
Wow.
It's stories of sexual abuse in childhood, it's poverty, extreme poverty, it's unemployment, it's mental illness, it's growing up in foster care, it's growing up with violence within the home, etc., etc. So it's, for most people in prostitution, this was not their first nor their hundred
Hmm.
choice. They would rather do something else. It's a lack of choice.
Yeah.
um, but our focus really is on the sex buyer, and
Hmm.
the I really think that if young people are made aware of the reality of prostitution, I think more people would then be hesitant towards paying for it.
Interesting.
So yeah.
And how do women basically end up, as you said, they don't have a lot of choices in this. Do you also think there is, as per your own research, do you think are there instances wherein girls are forced, or maybe, a lot of girls are kidnapped, or do you think that kind of scenario also happens? And what is the probability of that? How many percentage of that are there?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I would say that there aren't enough people who want to sell sex, basically. So
Mm-hmm.
that is why people are pimped and trafficked into this, of course,
Hmm.
because there are more people who want to pay for sex than there are people who want to sell sex.
Yeah.
So that is not matching, it's not adding up. And so then obviously a lot of people will be forced, or and I'm not saying everybody then has a gun to their head,
Mm-hmm.
because there are areas, gray areas here, when we're talking about being forced, and we're talking about lack of choice, because you you can actually measure choice.
Yeah.
um it decreases and it increases depending on how many choices you have.
Correct.
And so for someone who has then grown up in poverty, who has been sexually abused, who has no other options in their world, that is going to be the only then
Hmm.
choice, quotation marks. But then, you could say, is that even a choice, if that was your only one, of course. But yes, I mean, people are forced into this, for sure, on a global scale. And I mean, some of the stories I've heard, I remember this one girl. I think I actually told this story not long ago in another podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something she's just been on my mind, I guess, lately. And I met her in a brothel area in a red light district in Vienna, in Austria.
Okay.
And while we were talking, she was about 18 years old, and I think she was from Czech.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking, and she was obviously very drugged, basically, or
Okay.
drunk, or like something was really off. And it was like a scene from a movie. Like, it was raining right in the middle of this busy street where a lot of women are lined up, and all of the women would be separated into, depending on which country they were from, that
Okay.
decided where on this street that they were supposed to stand. And so she was in the the Czech department, kind of. And once she saw me, she actually kind of like ran towards me and just grabbed my hands, and we just stood there in the rain.
Wow.
And she just looked at me. We couldn't even, like, she didn't speak a word English. We couldn't talk. Yeah, we just stood there, and her pimp would just hover over us, like he would circle around us, like an eagle, looking for its prey,
Wow.
basically. He would
Yeah.
whisper in her ear what I understood to be threats, really, like, stop talking, get back to work,
Yeah.
So eventually we let go, and I never forgot her. So that's just one of the many, many people that I met that I would say definitely had someone else controlling the situation.
Hmm. So this is basically happening. Let's say people from poverty where they don't have a lot of choices, and they think that okay, this is the only way out. But do you have any recommendations for women who can save themselves from this kind of scenario? Do you have
Hmm.
any advice for them?
That is a good question. I mean, as long as we have people who are willing to pay for sex, it is always going to be people who are then bringing others into prostitution to make money.
Hmm.
So the responsibility really has to be obviously on the buyer. But for people in prostitution, there are several, in different countries. There are multiple exit programs, which you could I guess, reach out to, and to
Hmm.
get help. But I mean, that would depend on the country, and also like the legal status as well.
Correct.
Like, how is it viewed, and so on. Like, in Sweden, we have a law called, I would say it's mostly famous for being called the Nordic model, or
Okay.
the Swedish model even. But it's basically a law that prohibits the buying of sex, but not the selling of sex, which then
Hmm.
would place a burden upon the person who is buying. You know.
Correct.
Yeah. So instead of like having people in prostitution be not only vulnerable but also criminal, that is a problem. So in Sweden, we have a different approach to this,
Hmm.
and then that also leads to exit programs being installed for, because we cannot only just say like, oh, prostitution, it's harmful, but then what are we gonna offer,
Exactly.
out of prostitution, but into what? You have to offer something. So exit programs is a possibility. But I mean, it's a matter of how you were, your family as well. Like, I really think, because I hear this a lot, because I don't have any kids of my own.
Hmm.
And so, sometimes parents will come up to me and say, oh, you're doing such a great job. And, I'm doing nothing. I'm just home with my kids. And I'm like, no, but you are doing the job, you are taking care of your kids. And I really think that is prevention work,
True.
above anything. So to take care of your child really is a way of making sure that they are never ending up in prostitution.
Exactly.
It's really decreasing the risk. Yeah.
True. And these are two very important points that you mentioned, wherein, if we try to control the buyer, like let's say if that demands reduces, obviously the supply also is gonna decrease because we are not asking for it and they're not gonna deliver. And I like the way how you guys are approaching it the other way around, because this is something that I never flashed in my head as well. Right. So this is something that I understand, I recommend all my listeners as well to kind of understand, if you really want to focus, if you really want to have a change, start from yourself first. understand what are you supporting, and then make sure that you're not doing something wherein you wouldn't like our known ones or our loved ones to be there in that position. And
Mm.
parents educating their kids, I think that is so crucial and important, because let's imagine if we train our kids the right morals, that what is right, what is wrong, what are the things that you should not be going forward, and where they should, there's a thin line between understanding what are things that you support. Because you may say, I don't support prostitution and things like that, but if back in the day you're drunk and you go and just pay for some, you are actually end of the day supporting it. So let us become more aware of this fact that the reason the most of women, as per my knowledge and what I've done research, end up because of poverty and end up because they've been sex trafficked, kidnapped, and these are crazy things out there. So let us just make sure that we are not just for a few minutes of pleasure. Let us not spoil somebody's life, because we all live once. Let us do something good that actually has an impact, wherein all of us are loved and cared for, rather than just treating somebody as a just like a sex doll or something.
I have to say though, I think you as a guy talking about this is so important,
Mhm.
because I think then other guys will listen to you. So yeah,
Yeah, hopefully
that
that's
up.
that's my intent, because end of the day, it's on us guys. I totally agree that we are the ones that need to take charge, because when we come forward, I believe everyone is gonna have a safe environment. That's what I
Hmm.
believe.
Hmm.
uh Talking about very another important point, Maria, porn, and your
Yeah,
famous TED talk, let's talk porn. So let's talk porn, and
let's start
I
porn.
want to understand now in terms of porn, right? What is one of the most craziest thing you've observed about porn that is having an effect on human beings?
In terms of the young viewer, which is what is really on my heart, I would say that porn is really, it's rewiring the brain in a way that it would also change your attitudes
Hmm.
towards different parts, like consent, just boundaries, what is expected of you as well. What do you think that you have to do in bed to be a good partner, and what is also then something that you would expect from a partner. So it changes your attitudes, and it changes the way you view even rape and sexual assault. um, it normalizes a lot of that in a way. So by changing your attitudes, it is also at the risk of changing your behavior and changing your actions. So I would say that porn, I mean, eventually porn is going to be, I would say, or it is now, it's a matter of, do we want a society that is based on equality, or do we want it to be based on porn values, basically, because that is the opposite thing.
Hmm.
So we are going to have to tackle this one way or another, because right now, having 8, 9, 10 year olds having completely free access
Yes.
24/7 to the most aggressive material you can even imagine. There is nothing that hasn't been done in porn. Everything has been done. So kids and youth have that access 24/7, and then for oftentimes adults or parents or caretakers aren't talking to kids about it, because maybe they think it's something that my kid would never watch, and
Yeah.
they think this is my kid is never going to see, and not my kid, or it could be a fact of just basically a lack of knowledge. Maybe you think that, well, if my kid sees porn, it's going to be the Playboy porn that I saw when I was growing up, like a
Hmm.
magazine, like just still images. So maybe the parent or the caretaker aren't really aware of how actually porn looks like today.
Yeah.
What Pornhub is actually offering, that is very different from the Playboy porn. Or it could simply be a case of, I don't know how to talk to my kid. You know, I'm just so lost. I don't even know how to start a conversation. And I also don't want to, if my kid hasn't seen anything, I don't want to wake a sleeping bear.
Yeah.
So then just quiet about it. But that serves nobody. So I'm all
Exactly.
about talking porn. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're very right about that as well, right? Like that statistics in India also says 9 parents out of 10 actually believe that their kid are not watching porn.
Hmm.
Whereas Whereas the other statistics in India say that, today approximately 90%, 89% of people who use smartphones, and
Hmm.
including kids who have laptop or desktop at homes, are actually watching porn. Imagine
Oh, wow.
90% of people actually watching porn, and
Wow.
majority of them are on their smartphone. So it has actually become so easy for people to get access to porn, and that also sets so much, as you rightly pointed out, it is rewiring the brain. It is, scientists also recommend, right? They also say that this is as addictive as, you could say, like how a drug does, or drug, alcohol, because it is triggering the same part of your brain and releasing those hormones, dopamine, or those pleasure hormones. Whereas it also sets, as you said, those real vivid images wherein, let's say, when somebody's watching porn for the first time, because I'll be honest, when I was young, I was exposed to it, and
Hmm.
that first experience was something which just blew my mind, because I did not know what was happening. And then when you don't know and you start pleasuring yourself with more and more and more, and then it becomes a habit, it becomes really difficult to get rid of that behavior, and then, start a fresh life. Wherein a lot of people also think, this is all records, right? This is all scientific evidence that people, a lot of people also think that, watching porn once in a while is fine. But
Hmm.
then, okay, what is the intent behind it, right? I
Hmm.
mean, if you're really watching porn and you think this is fine, then imagine this same thing 10, 15 minutes you're watching some women who's been, sex trafficked or has been a victim of something. You're watching her because, if you remember, the story of Mia Khalifa, like, these
Yes.
days she's really coming forward and talking a lot about porn and how she was abused. We think, as men and a lot of people, that, porn is paying them a huge amount. They enjoy doing that. They enjoy sex all the time. That is why they're doing it. But the story is totally different behind the scenes. They are being tortured. They're not being paid. They are aggressively beaten. That treated like, really as non-humans, and that's how they treat them. And when
Hmm.
women actually come out of it is when they start talking. I'm sure you
Hmm.
also have some stories, pretty much similar to that, right? So have you spoken to somebody, maybe a few porn stars, who actually come forward and told you their, some really ugly stories of porn and being in that porn industry?
Yes, I mean, for sure. And I just want to say I totally agree with you on Mia Khalifa being like she's so brave. I'm just
Yeah,
so in awe of her and what she is basically doing on her own, speaking out against the porn
yeah,
industry, and they are coming down on her, but she's not
exactly.
giving up. And I'm just like, I'm in Sweden, just cheering on.
Yes.
Yeah, she's so cool. Yes, I have. I've actually been spending a lot of time in the US these last couple of years, speaking to people within the industry. So I've spoken to people like in front of the camera and then behind the camera. So
Mm-hmm.
producers or directors and I mean I've heard I would say stories from the whole spectra. I've heard the most well at least it's being told to me as a sunshine story, like, oh, nothing bad happened to me, this is what I want to do. And yeah, and so then I'm thinking, who am I to actually judge that? Then I
Exactly.
totally have to respect that. And then, but again, that is kind of like, well, that's not part of the problem then. You know what I mean? Like,
True.
then, okay, fine. But then I've also obviously heard the stories that are quite heavy. One of perhaps the worst stories that I've heard came from he used to be a porn producer. So he started off with like quite, I would say, softcore
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and then that kind of developed into more hardcore stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And and he shared with me. He said, you know what? I got bored. I got bored with the stuff I was producing, so I just had to spice it up. Things that happened was that he had recruited a young girl into porn, and he told me that when he first met her, he said she had light in her eyes, so he could really see like she was alive. He saw her in her eyes. But then he said that eventually that light would kind of go away,
Wow.
and it actually the whole story, it's so tragic, but the whole thing actually came to came to the point where she actually hung herself. She committed suicide on a playground in LA, in California. And he told me that in his mind, he was part of the reason why that happened, because she just couldn't take it anymore. So he felt guilty for it. And so that really, I remember I was in a hotel room in LA, and he told me the story, and it hit me like a, yeah, it's just that is so heavy, and that is not uncommon. Like suicide within the porn industry, it's not uncommon, not
Yeah.
at all. And mental illness and all of that. And one of the girls that I've met, she used to be in porn. She's actually quit it now, but she's told me, I would actually say, more positive stories. And then that is important for me as well, to hear that and to incorporate that in my whole like view of the porn industry, so
Yeah.
that it doesn't end up becoming this entirely black and white issue where I'm not actually sharing the truth about it, you know?
Mm.
So I'm appreciative to everyone in the industry who has opened up and who has shared their stories. I've yet to talk to Pornhub though. I've reached out. I've reached out to MindGeek, who's the company who owns Pornhub, several years ago. They have not responded, and yes. So I'm hoping.
They are the dominant ones, right? Who are actually have that's a legal company that is actually legalizing and porn and almost every other country. And they are, when you have a company that is operating on such a global level, and then when you try to talk to them as Mia Khalifa, let's say, trying to raising the voice, and these are the companies that basically make sure that you don't talk, because they don't want to show the ugly side of things. They just want to show, you know end of the day, it's $1 billion company. It's not just a normal company that you're going up against. And then
Hmm.
if you're going against them, you're going against every single individual that is working in that company as well. Though
Hmm.
we hear different stories, people coming in that was my choice. Yeah, there may be a few, but is that the truth? Because end of the day, when people are shooting, and as per the research as well, most of these female actresses are either drunk while they're shooting, or drugs, cocaine. These are very common things across the industry. And the same applies with guys. Once they enter, they become so aggressive. And I love the part wherein you mentioned, people started with that. So a producer started with soft porn, and then he gets into the hardcore, and that is how it affects our brain as well. We think that, okay, let us start from soft, I'm not doing anything wrong, but then eventually, to release same those hormones over and again, you need to get more and more aggressive, because you get bored of the same thing. And then once you're watching, let's say, soft porn, and after maybe a few months you'll be watching some really hardcore porn, wherein
Hmm.
the woman is treated harshly. She has no idea, she's just doing it for the sake of the money, because she wants to feed. She has nobody around her that really supports her and loves her, because once you get into this industry, it's really difficult to get out. And then
Hmm.
the family you had, they don't want to talk to you. It's all, you're on your own, and then you have nobody to talk to, and then they don't see a way out. I mean, like, once you
Right.
actually put when I personally think of somebody, let's say, my loved ones being in that kind of position, it is so crazy to think about it, right? They don't have anybody to talk to, they can't go out, and the only people that they talk to are basically these producers who want to get the most out of them at every single point of time.
Hmm.
And we
Hmm.
actually coming forward and trying to spread awareness so that people can understand what exactly it is when you're watching, so that it's not just a fun thing, there are a lot of other things happening at the back end.
Yeah.
Now, for people who are addicted, let's say, Maria, do you have any advice as to if how they can break this habit of watching porn? Do you have any insights on that?
Yeah. Great question. I would say, because you mentioned it earlier, like it functions like, I guess, like any other drug, you know? I mean, the brain can't really tell if it's being fed cocaine or porn, you know? We
Mm.
have one reward system, and that is going to respond to whatever is being presented to it. So obviously porn is going to be highly it's going to offer you such a reward in your reward system, like you said, with the dopamine spikes and all of that. So it's going to be highly addictive as well. We know this, that the younger you are, the higher the risk that
Yeah.
something is going to get you hooked, really. And I mean, I don't know what the numbers are for India, or if you guys have any numbers for that, but in Sweden, it's about 12 years old for young boys to first go online to watch
Mm.
porn. But then obviously some are way younger, 8, 6, 10.
Wow.
Where others, of course, can be older as well. For girls, it's a bit under 14, which is the average age in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
So 13.7, I think. You have this situation with young people watching something that is so highly addictive, and then also so few adults talking to kids and youth about this.
Mm.
So, you have no other input really. This is the only kind of sex educator, quotation mark again, that you have.
Yeah.
So, but still, like with any other addiction, what you need to do is that you need to tell someone, because that
Mm.
is first kind of step to then break the cycle of secrecy. So you have
Mm.
to share what's going on with someone you trust. It doesn't even have to be a parent. If you don't trust your parents, it can be someone else. It can be a teacher, an older sibling, a friend's sibling, or like a friend's parents, or just find someone who perhaps is a bit older than you and someone that you trust. That is, I would say, the first step. I would also say that, obviously, if you do feel like, I'm so deep into this shit, so
Yeah.
I need professional help, then that is what you need. But I do know of a lot of people who have been able to quit it themselves, really. So share with someone or someone you trust, and also try to not fall asleep with your phone next to you when you go to
Mm.
bed, because that could be like a weak moment. Also try to put the time and the, I guess, effort that you put into porn, try to exchange porn for something more, more, I guess, more healthy for you. So if that is, a new hobby or an old hobby or something that is just going to put your mind into something else, something that's positive and healthy, that's a tip. And also, this seems to be something that works for many, is that you get someone, uh, an accountability partner. So
Mm.
let's say I had been addicted to porn, and then you would be my accountability partner, meaning you would then perhaps call me once a week and ask me, so Maria, how is it going? Tell me the latest. Have you been, going online for anything? Like what's been happening? And then
Yeah.
the whole idea of that is for me to be honest. So I'm supposed to be held accountable. So whether or not I've been, porn surfing or not, that doesn't really matter in a way, if you get what I'm saying. Like the important thing is that I'm sharing this with you, because then hopefully that will lead me to make wiser decisions, because, oh, he is going to call me this Monday, and I actually don't want to tell him that I went online and watched this entire weekend. So maybe I'll just go for a run instead. That's kind of the
Yeah.
idea behind it. Yeah.
I love the part about accountability, because then at least you know that, because most of the time when people watch this, they're doing this in secret, right? Like they're home at alone, or it's the middle of the night, nobody's watching, and then okay, they think, okay, fine, now maybe I'm getting bored, so let's go ahead and watch it. But
Yeah.
then I also understand a lot of people who genuinely want to get rid of porn, but then they couldn't because of, maybe they have stopped it for a few months, and then again that it hits them again, right? It just needs that one push, and then you're back to that square one again. And having
Yeah.
that accountability partner, I think, can definitely help, because let's say if you have that intention of, somebody has an intention of getting rid of porn and they're genuinely trying, it's okay if you, after 6 months, you watched porn. Tell your partner, tell that partner that, okay, what happened, I actually watched it again, so that you're letting the person know, as well as you are also giving yourself that room, that okay, man, I've made a mistake, let me correct it. Because if not
Yes.
today, tomorrow again you're gonna, so let us not push ourselves back if you've just fallen, because this is a common trait with any habit, right? If you're trying to build a habit, something, a bad habit basically, and when we go back to it, and then we start enjoying it again. But let us be a little free with ourselves, and then not push ourselves down, but continue, because it's a daily process. We have to daily fight this urge, because once you get addicted to it, this is difficult to beat.
Yes. I totally agree. Yes. And that is something I always say, just what you're saying now, like be kind to yourself. So I mean, yeah, get back up.
Yeah.
Always get back up, and don't be so hard on yourself that you then eventually decide to one day not get
Yeah.
back up. You
Exactly.
know? So keep on going and keep on encouraging yourself. And because the thing with addiction is that you have to want to quit something to be able to
Yeah.
even quit it. You have to know that you're addicted. You have to acknowledge that to yourself. So that is just, that is such an important step. So sure, you're going to fail and you're going to have setbacks, but the important thing here is that you want something and you're still
True.
striving towards that goal. So yeah.
True. Perfect. And what about porn destroying relationships as well? Now, a lot of people, let's say, who have been watching porn for a long time, they have a whole different perception of sex if they're watching it from an early age, wherein they think the woman should be treated as an object, and then you know, you can't basically enact what is happening in a porn into your personal life. So, what do you think are some negative effects, and how if you watch a lot of porn will destroy relationships?
Hmm. I was actually listening to a podcast this morning where they mentioned this somewhat, and it just got me thinking. And just like from what I'm hearing and from the research that I've read and all that, I mean, it is such a factor in today's relationships, and it is, to many, it could be seen as as basically cheating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that, I mean, but that's up to each individual couple or whatever to decide for themselves if they want that or not, of course, in their relationship. But I'm like, the stories that I'm hearing are still a lot of even guys saying, my girlfriend is watching porn, and it hurts me because it feels like she's choosing them over me.
Yeah.
And but yeah, but mostly it's been girls actually writing me on just Instagram, sharing about how they compare themselves to the women in porn, and how they then think that, oh, I saw that my boyfriend had watched this, so I better step it up here, but I don't want to do
Yeah.
that, but I guess I have to. And so all of those thoughts. So I think it's bringing a third party into the relationship, creating pressure
Mm,
and like setting a norm. And I would say that's a matter of power, because I think that each individual should be able to decide for themselves what turns them on. But now with this whole situation that we got, today, is basically the porn industry is telling us what is turning us on or not.
yeah.
So we're not even giving a fair chance to investigate that for ourselves. The porn industry is deciding for us. And so that is lack of power. That is lack of sexual power, I think, today. But then also, the um like the actual acts that you see in porn as well is of course being transferred into relationship, in terms of choking, hair pulling, slapping, gagging, spitting, biting, stuff that to, I would say, many would be violating, would feel
Yeah.
violating. So I really think here, like, the important thing, obviously, the important word here would be consent. Because, I mean, if you're in a relationship and someone wants to pull your hair and you're fine with that, I don't have it, like, I'm not even going to
Hmm.
think about that. That is not
Yeah.
I don't care,
True.
What I care about is young people who think that I have to pull someone's hair,
Hmm.
or that think that I have to scream, with pleasure if someone is pulling my hair, when actually I don't even like it, because the porn industry has set those standards. So that's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the part when you spoke about the girls, and as to they don't necessarily have to act if they're not enjoying something. And then I think for guys also, it puts a lot of pressure on, because if somebody is looking at porn, they see the porn for lasting for 45 minutes to an hour, sets
Sure.
really unreal expectations for guys to really think of lasting that long while they are actually making out with their partner, because that's not everybody's cup of tea. And people don't understand that the porn which was shot, the video was shot, that was shot over an entire day or 2 days. It's not just an half an hour activity wherein the guy or they are basically on drugs, or it's a long process. And then women expecting me, let's say, that my partner should last, because those are really unrealistic expectations that partners are having from one another. Because if you don't understand what exactly is the issue, you'll not be able to resolve it. So I think,
Mm.
as you say, if we start watching porn, it's gonna, end of the day, it's gonna get more and more aggressive. You're gonna get more and more aggressive without even we realizing the fact that this is something wrong.
Right. Or like thinking that, oh, but I chose this, but then not even realizing, no, you're such a product of this, not only porn industry, but this porn culture as well that we live in, because obviously porn is going to have an influence on mainstream media as well, pop
Yeah.
culture and, all music, movies, fitness industry, whatever. So we are so influenced by porn actually every day, even though we don't even watch it ourselves. We're still going to
True.
be influenced in some way. Yeah.
So true. So true. I know we are coming to the end of the interview, so I don't want to make it, more longer, but I do have two last questions that I want to ask you, Maria.
Hmm.
So one being from the end, if you want to give, let's say, two advice to all the listeners, okay, it could be anything, basically, to make sure that they are happy, living a good, fulfilling life, and also kind of getting rid away from these habits. What two advice would you give them?
Wow. I would say my first advice would be keep it simple, like hang out with people that make you feel good
Hmm.
and hang out with people that you want to be more like,
Hmm.
because you are going to turn into the people that you're kind of keeping closest to
Yeah.
your heart. So make sure those people are people that have qualities that you want to achieve and I guess develop within yourself as well. I'm really strict on who I actually let into my really inner corner.
Exactly.
And for me, I have like my mental image of this is that I see a house and a garden, and I see a fence, and I see the mailbox, and then I see the grocery store. And so I kind of like decide who gets to come into my garden, who can I drink tea with on the porch, who gets to come into my kitchen, and who do I only wave to, from above, from the other side of the fence, and who will I only speak to at the fruit section.
I mean,
you
that
know,
is so important.
yes, so that helps me. That helps me. And then I'm like, that's fine with then having a lot of different people in your life. Like, I'm not all about saying, oh, you have to only hang out with people that are just so fantastic. Like, no, no, no. Please hang out with all kinds of people and all kinds of different people with all kinds of different mindsets and attitudes and opinions. But make sure that that the people that you're letting into your kitchen are the good ones that you wanna be like, I guess.
Yeah.
Then I would say the second part would be to be aware of who you're following on social media. I would say that because I'm really about following people whose opinions are, the complete opposite of mine. Like I follow Pornhub, so of
Interesting.
course I follow Pornhub because I want to learn.
Yeah.
I look at all their live streams and all of that because
True.
I'm like, okay, I guess I have something to learn here. But I would still say be careful with if you're following someone that every time you see them or every time you see their photos, it makes you feel bad and it makes you compare yourself and it makes you just feel, yeah, just bad vibes, just
Yeah.
go and that unfollow button.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is
Yeah.
something that I always recommend all my listeners. So, on my Instagram post, Facebook, this is the number one tip I give people.
Really?
Yeah, unfollow people who are not making you feel good. I mean, like that is so important because when you open, your Instagram and when you look at, some really a pretty woman who's at 25 years old, has some surgery done, she looks fantastic, and a normal woman just checks it out and she's like, ah man, why can't I be like this? Because if
Yeah.
I have to be like, if I have to be liked, I need to be like her, which is not true because you don't know when she's waking up how does she look. That's all, at that specific moment she's been groomed, and even you can do that. But again, that is setting so unrealistic expectation. Let's say somebody has a six-pack ab and then I pick it up and I'm like, oh my god, it makes me feel bad. So let us stop following these kind of people, so that end of the day our intention towards life has to be, something that makes us feel good. End of the day, that is what that matters. We are here,
Yes.
so let us do things that really matter to us, and unfollow people that does just make us feel not enough or make us feel short. This is the time. These are exactly the two things I always point it out. So
This is amazing.
high five on
High
that.
five. Virtual high five.
Yeah. One last question now, Maria. okay, before I let you go. Now, this is to do with how can people make themselves more aware in terms of porn and sex trafficking. Any
Mm,
books you recommend that people should read which can help them understand the real deal of all these things?
yeah. Uh, I would say, speaking of social media, I would say follow Instagram accounts that share facts about this, so that you would stay up to date. Because I mean, a lot of we do that with changing attitudes as well. We always make sure to drop the latest, research and all that. So that is a way to kind of get like the short, quick info. I would
Mm-hmm.
say it's so easy to share with someone and just like discuss and talk about it. And then I would say go on Netflix and look up some documentaries, and even YouTube has a lot of good stuff as well. And there is a book called Your Brain on Porn by Gary Wilson,
Okay.
which could be interesting if you're more into what's happening in the brain,
Hmm.
uh, which I am really interested in as well. So I really appreciated that book. Yeah, so a couple of documentaries on Netflix, YouTube, that book, and then some good social media accounts.
Okay.
I would say is a good
Perfect.
starting point. Yeah.
Makes sense. Perfect, Maria. So thank you so much, for sharing all that insight about porn and sex trafficking and how people can actually get rid of these, how it is starting, how it is going. I'm sure this information would definitely add a lot of value to people who might not have a lot of insight on this topic. So again, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
This brings us to the end of this episode and hope you at least had one takeaway from this interview. If you have any questions or want to talk to me personally, you can find me at www.silawathirshad.com. See you soon.